Yo, what's up, man? It's Hector here, the Kettlebell Coach. In this video, we're going to be kicking off a four-part Kettlebell Beginner's Guide series. So if you are new to the channel and if you are new to strength training with kettlebells, you're in the right spot and you're going to get a lot of value out of this series. And if you are a seasoned veteran, you'll take away some golden nuggets, I'm sure. And we're going to be kicking off this series with how to choose the right kettlebell weight slash size. This is a common question where people start is when they get into kettlebells says, man, what weight should I use? And I've seen people choose weights way too light and weights that are way too heavy. So we want to make sure that we choose a kettlebell or a pair of kettlebells that we can grow with, but that ultimately will never outgrow. Okay. So that's what we're going to be covering in this lesson, in this lesson slash video. So if you're new to the channel and you don't know who I am, my name is Hector Gutierrez Jr. For over 12 and a half years, I ran one of only two kettlebell-only training facilities here in Corpus Christi, Texas, or in Texas, but we're located in Corpus Christi, Texas, where we helped men and women over 40 build stronger, leaner, more capable bodies in less time, so that way they could have more time to do what it is that they enjoy doing, whether that's playing with their kids, traveling, doing jujitsu, like whatever that is. We help them do that in about 90 minutes per week. So that way, as I mentioned, they can do more of what they enjoy and spend less time trying to be the best at exercise. So if that sounds like you, welcome to the channel. In the description, there's a link. I've got a free gift for you. It's a download, a 4-week kettlebell strength program that you can dive into and start putting into action once you get your first kettlebell weight. Okay, so let's dive in. So we're going to be breaking this up into two parts. Okay, so we're going to talk about skill level, and then from there, I'll talk about how to move up a kettlebell size slash weight. So really quick, one thing we want to keep in mind is we're choosing kettlebells. So let's think about a kettlebell. It's a prefixed weight. Some think that's a liability, but I think there's a lot of value to that. So kettlebells range from anywhere from 8 kilograms, i.e., 18 pounds, all the way up to 48 kilograms, which would be about 106 pounds, and everything in between. Now, when kettlebells first became a strength training tool, they were weighed in poods because they come from Russia. So one pood is about 16 kilograms, i.e., 35 pounds. A half pood is 8 kilograms. So everything goes in poods. So you didn't have, nowadays, we've got a whole variety of kettlebell weights and sizes. But traditionally, they would increase in 8-kilogram increments. So half pood to 1 pood increments. So our traditional weights were 8 kilo, 16 kilo, 24 kilo, 32, and 40. Like those were the only weights. And then as kettlebells became popular, they started adding like in between weights. So now we've got 8 kilos, 10, 12, and then it went 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, 40, 44, 48. And then eventually they started adding in between sizes. So it went 12 kilo, 14 kilo, and 22 kilo, 26 kilo. So we want to make sure that I highly encourage to stick to traditional weights. Now, traditional weights would only be like the 4 or 5 that I mentioned. Now, when I say traditional weights, I mean 4-kilogram jumps. So for men, I recommend 4-kilogram jumps. For ladies, 2-kilogram jumps. I covered this in a past lesson on micro loading. Take a look at that. I'll put it in the corner, and you can check that out at your convenience. So one of the great things about strength training with kettlebells is you can get strong and conditioned really fast. So we don't want to choose a weight that's too light. If we choose something too light, if you choose something too light, don't be shocked that, man, you've like outgrown the kettlebell. So if you're a beginner with less than 6 months experience, so if you have less than 6 months experience, you are a beginner. If this is you, if you're a lady, I recommend starting with 8 kilograms. Okay, it's going to be about 18 pounds. If you're a gentleman, you're going to start with 16 kilogram, 35 pounds. Those are two really good starting points for beginners. 7 months to 5 years. I know that sounds like a big gap. We could probably make it shorter, but in my experience, 7 months to 5 years, you're an intermediate kettlebell. Let's call you a kettlebell athlete. Okay, kettlebell user. And so if you're a lady, I recommend about 10 to 12 kilos. And if you're a gentleman, I recommend 20 to 24 kilos. But in the 7 month to 5 year range, you're starting to develop a lot of skills. By now, you should have worked on your press, your squat, clean, get up. Like you should have laid the foundation. Then you've probably worked into the snatch, and you might even start getting into kettlebell complexes. I did a video on how to develop your own kettlebell complex. So 10 to 12 kilos for ladies and 20 to 24 kilograms for men. You'll pretty much never outgrow that kettlebell size. To run a full kettlebell complex program with a pair of 24s, that's legit. Like you are strong if you can hold a pair of 24 kilo bells for up to about a minute, because depending on the complex, you can be doing repetitions that would last anywhere from 30 seconds up to a minute, maybe a little bit over a minute. Ladies, if you can do that with a pair of 10s, pair of 12 kilo bells, that's legit. You are solid. Okay. So that intermediate, those weights, you can do pretty much all things with kettlebells, and you are now entering into like kettlebell complexes. You're getting a lot stronger. So intermediate, it's about 7 months up to about 5 years. I would consider you an intermediate user, and I recommend 10 to 12 kilos for ladies, and for men, 20 to 24 kilos. Now, advanced would be over 5 years experience. Ladies, you can use 16 kilos or heavier. Gentlemen, 32 kilos and heavier. And as I mentioned, in the upcoming episodes 3 and 4, I'll be breaking down like how to structure kettlebell workouts and what type of exercises, based on your skill level, that you should be working on. So that's part one. So part one is, let's get clear on what's our skill level. Have I been training for less than 6 months? If so, 8 kilos, ladies, 16 kilos, men. If I've been training for, about a year, up to 5 years, 10 to 12 kilos, ladies, 20 to 24 kilos, gentlemen. And then over 5 years, by now you should have a big foundation of strength and volume underneath your belt. So now you can start training with heavier weights. And that leads to part two. Part two is when to move up a kettlebell size. This is a common question I get on the channel. By the way, really quick side note, every Monday, I make a post in our community here on YouTube, and I basically ask, what do you need help with? What questions, like, how can I help you? What questions would you like me to answer for you? Be on the lookout for that. That comes out every Monday. I post that every Monday, probably sometime in the morning. And feel free to drop any questions that you have. I would love to answer your question. I'll do a full video answering your question, and that way you can get on track with building that stronger, leaner, more capable body. And one of the common questions I would get is, man, when should I move up a kettlebell size? I just finished doing this program. Should I move up a weight and do the program again? Like, what should I do? So here's how I look at this. One of our core values is developing skills. One of our core values is being consistent with the training. So within the Strong First system, we have 3 principles of program design. Principle number 1 is continuity of the training process. This is the consistency component. Stay consistent with something long enough. Don't be changing. Don't be jumping around. Like, it's easy for us to go, oh, like silver object, or shiny silver object, squirrel. Don't jump from one program to the next. Stay consistent with the one thing. Even if it's like I'm just training one exercise for a period of time. I trained the double jerk only for over 15 months, and I'm still continuing that journey to this day, but now I'm actually doing a planned training protocol. So stay consistent. Okay. That's the continuity of the training. That doesn't mean that you only have to, like, for example, using me, only using the double jerk. There's variations, because a double jerk could be, press, push, press. It could be single jerk. It could be double jerk, long cycle, clean and jerk. But at the end of the day, I'm still doing jerks. If you look at the other exercises, swings, you could still work on developing the skill in your swing, but one day you could do 2-handed swings, the other hand-to-hand swings, the other day, one-arm swings, dead stop swings. There's many different variations of swings, but you're still working on your swing, right? So that's the continuity of the training process. So this is consistency, pillar number 1. The second is waviness of the load. So we don't want to do the same repetitions like over and over. Okay, so we want to allow for some changes in the load, some variability. And then the last principle of program design is specialized variety, which I just mentioned. as part of the continuity. Specialized variety, adding in different variations of the exercise. So when you're thinking of moving up a kettlebell size, maybe you started with, 8 kilos, you're a lady, or maybe you started with 16 kilos and you're a guy, and you've been training for about 6 months now. You're heading into that year, completing your first year of training, and you're thinking about moving up. Number one, take a look at your consistency. Have you been building your skills across the core 6 exercises, which would be swing, get up, clean press, squat, and snatch? Okay, so I would work on essentially mastering those, for lack of better words. In your training, you want to have more constants than variables. I wouldn't recommend in the beginning doing all 6 exercises, which we're going to break down in upcoming episodes on how to structure this out. But I'm just kind of giving you a little taste. Is stick with 1, maybe 2 exercises and just work on developing those for a period of time. And once you've done, let's say, once you've done the kettlebell swing for a month, if you did 2-handed swings, next month move to 1-hand swings. Month after that, hand-to-hand swings. Month after that, a combination. Day 1, 2-handed swings. Day 2, 1-arm swings. Day 3, hand-to-hand swings. So and that right there, you start constant, and then you slowly add in some variability. Okay, so your constants could be like your reps could stay the same. The weight will stay the same. You'll stay at 16 kilos. You'll stay at 8 kilos. Your schedule will stay the same, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but then your volume will be the variable, right? So now we're talking continuity of the training, and now we're talking about waviness of load here. These are the first things I would take a look at. Have I been doing these before I think about moving up a kettlebell size? The second thing I would take into consideration before moving up a kettlebell size is start incorporating some density into the training. Density is doing more volume, i.e. reps and sets, in the same time, or the same volume in less time. So remember, I mentioned that I've got a free gift for you inside the description. A lot of the workouts that are in there, they're 10 to 15 minutes. And they're based on a concept called autoregulation. Autoregulation is a good training method for beginners. It allows you to set a timer and just go, right? Set a timer for 10 minutes and do these many reps for as many sets as you can do. That allows you to get real-time feedback. Am I getting better? Am I actually getting stronger? Is my endurance improving? Because, week 1, on day 1, I did, 10 sets of 2. And then on week 2, I did 12 sets of 2, right? So we did more volume in less time. Or if you're only going to stick with 10 sets and you're going to set a timer for 10 minutes, but let's say you got it done in 8 minutes. So that right there is it's instant feedback if you're making progress. So incorporate some density. Take a look at your training log. I hope you're keeping a training log. Take a look at your training log and see, man, did I focus on density? Have I been consistent? And did I add a density component to the training? And the last part is intensity. You can perform a strength test to move up a bell size. So once you've completely exhausted, I encourage you, what I'm trying to get at here is I highly recommend, I covered this in one of my last videos, the 4 steps to your first 5-minute snatch test, because I kind of had the same similar question was, should I move up a weight? Like, what should I do to progress? You want to exhaust your genetic potential first. Can you squeeze that fruit for all the juice that it has? Once you can no longer do any more reps, any more sets, you've been consistent with that same weight and your training schedule for over 6 months, and you've exhausted all your resources, then it's the time to work on moving up a bell size. And to do that, I would perform a strength test. Let's say 16 kilo bell. And I would base this test on the kettlebell press. Why the kettlebell press? Because more than likely, your press will be the weakest link. If we're talking about the 6 core exercises, right? So swing, get up, clean press, squat, snatch. If we're talking about the 6 core exercises, the press will more than likely be your weak link. If you do a strength test with, front squat, well, you can squat more than you can press. And for the most part, you can probably snatch more than you can press, right? You can definitely do a lot more snatches than you can do strict pressing because there's no grind component. There's no grind component to this. So base your volume on the kettlebell press. I talked about this in my video on how to develop and build your own kettlebell complex. Base it on the press. If you're going to be doing double kettlebells, then base it on the double snatch because then that becomes the weakest link. And set a goal. If you've been doing sets of 3 in your training for the most part, set a goal like I want to do 5. And then once you do 5, if you feel strong, just keep going and then just document that in your training log. If you can do, let's say you've been training with a 16 kilo for, 7, 8 months, going on a year. And in the beginning, you could barely press it 3 to 5 times. And then you finish at the end of the year with like 10 to 12 repetitions. Number one, that's amazing. Good job. If you can press it 10 to 12 times, you're ready to move up the next kettlebell size. And then from there, as I mentioned in the beginning, I would go up plus 4 kilos for gentlemen, plus 2 kilos for ladies. Now, ladies, you don't have to adhere to plus 2 kilos. If you got crazy strong and you're ready to go up, if you're going from 8 and you're ready to go up to 12 kilos, by all means, go up 12 kilos. But for the most part, most, women don't have as strong upper bodies as men. And so what I've noticed, the majority of our clientele that I coached in my gym, like 70% of our clientele at our gym were women, mid 30s, wanted to get stronger, be more confident, lose weight, that kind of thing. 12 and a half years, almost 13 years of coaching women. These are real metrics and feedback that I've gotten. Usually 2 kilo jumps is the sweet spot. Every now and then we can do 4 kilo jumps on these, and I'm talking about grind exercises. So that might, if you're a beginner, that might sound like a strange word. Grind exercises are your slow movements: pressing, squatting, deadlifting, doing chin-ups, pull-ups. Those are your slow movements. Then we got ballistic movements. That's a funny term too, right? Ballistic movements are the explosive, the dynamic movements. So swings, cleans, snatches, those are your dynamic movements. So what I'm talking about here in these 4 kilo jumps is 2 kilo jumps and 4 kilo jumps is on the grind exercises. Now you can go 8 kilo jumps and maybe more when you're doing ballistic. So let's say you're doing two-handed swings and you're training with 16 kilo and you've been doing that for a while, you can probably go right up to 24 kilo two-handed swings. And we've done this, like I said, with women, mid 30s and up. They can easily do 8 kilo plus jumps on ballistic exercises. But when it comes to the grind exercises, 2 kilos is a sweet spot for men. 4 kilos is a sweet spot there. All right. So just a quick recap. If you're new to kettlebells, number one, let's get clear on the intensity, which is the weight that we're going to be using. And this will be aligned to your skill level. So if you're a beginner is 6 months or less, 8 kilos for ladies, 16 kilos for men. If you're an intermediate, which is going to be about 7 months, a year to 5 years, intermediate level skill, ladies 10 to 12 kilos, gentlemen 20 to 24 kilos. And then advanced would be over 5 years experience training. Ladies 16 kilos, men 32 kilos. Once you guys, man, ladies training with a pair of 16 kilos, and men with a pair of 32 kilos, that's mutant status. Like you are a freak of nature. Good job when you get to that point. And as I mentioned in upcoming lessons, I'm going to talk about like what exercise you should be doing, how to align that based on your skill level, how to structure your workouts. Like we'll get into all that. Part 2 was when and how to move up a kettlebell size. And I just have like three layers or 3 qualifications, if you will. Number 1, consistent. Got to keep a training log in order to know this. Have you been consistent with the training? Have you had more constants than variables, like keeping the reps the same, keeping the weight the same, keeping the schedule the same? Like those are variables I would keep consistent, and then just vary the volume. So what would that look like? So if you're keeping the weight the same, the reps the same, the schedule the same, and remember how I talked about in kettlebell workout snacks, we've got like 10 to 15 minute workouts. Well, you could do like 10 minutes on day 1, 15 minutes on day 2, 20 minutes on day 3. So just that little variation in the volume, by virtue, you're going to do more repetitions and the volume peaks at the end of the week, right? So that would be an example of having more constants than variables. Once you've been consistent long enough, start adding a density component. Start trying to get more reps in the same time, or complete your workout, do the same reps in less time. And then from there, once you've exhausted your genetic potential of how much volume that you can complete, then you can work on boosting the intensity, which is the weight that you're lifting. Perform a strength test to move up a bell size. And I would base that strength test on the kettlebell press because that's more than likely going to be the weak point. And then from there, log down your total volume. If you did 10 reps or more, you're definitely ready for the next size up. Gentlemen, I'd go up plus 4 kilos. Ladies, I would go up plus 2 kilos. All right. And that's all I got for you today. If you've got questions, if you're a beginner, leave me something in the comments. Let me know how you found kettlebells, and what some of your goals are. We'd love to be able to support you with your goals. If you are an advanced trainee, you've been training for over 5 years, drop something in the comments. Let me know what got you into kettlebells. How did you what's your kettlebell story? We always do this when we have this introduction for our students that come into our academy is, hey, what's your kettlebell story? Because everybody has their own really cool, unique kettlebell story. And so let me know in the chat. What's your kettlebell story? How did you find kettlebells? What got you into it? What are some of your goals? So that way we can keep you accountable to some of those goals. All right. So that's all I got for you today. I'll see you on the next episode. I appreciate you watching. Peace.